A lot of people are saying women are getting infertile. I would like to have kids, so I don't want to put myself at risk for getting infertile just for getting a vaccine.
Now, when you talk about stuff like infertility, that's super scary, of course. The good news is there's absolutely no truth to that. All of the data so far suggests that that's not the case. I mean, nobody's become infertile from getting these vaccines. People have gone on to have babies after having them. People have gotten these vaccines while they've been pregnant and their babies have been born healthy. It hasn't been proven at all.
Real talk. Real topics. Real solutions. This is MSR Forefront with your host, Stefanetta Harmon.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the MSR Forefront. I am Stefanetta Harmon, your host of this roundtable discussion series on everything Black in Minnesota. And now I know we normally talk politics, health, drama in our communities, but tonight we're going to take on a lighter perspective on music, with our focus on music, though, you know, everything Black in Minnesota has politics in it. But tonight we're going to delve into Minnesota's rich musical heritage as it relates to our community in honor of Black Music Month. And what better way to do this, y'all, than connecting with some of the Twin Cities musical gatekeepers and door openers who, as staple media journalists, have a long time history of opening our eyes and ears to the sounds and stories of local, aspiring, and mama, I made it talents. So I'm super excited today. Tonight we have our guest, Robin Robinson, who, you know, she local history, veteran history, as Minnesota's Broadcast Hall of Famer. She's an inductee in there. She's the first Black woman to anchor a local primetime newscast, and she's given us all sorts of cultural connections to the community as it relates to arts, music, and everything and beyond. And, you know, now she's founder of 5x5 Public Arts Consultant. So she's still giving us culture. So I love it. I want to say welcome to Robin. I want to say welcome to Marquis Taylor, who is a writer for the Spokesman-Recorder, the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder, who has also been giving us stories over the years related to Black music, getting in there and being able to communicate current day artists. And he's also a podcaster. And so I'm super excited to have him. And he hails from Detroit, very clear. I must say this to him. That he is from Detroit, not Detroit, but Detroit. And a podcaster of Detroit Worldwide. And what I love, and it's important to note that we aren't here, the people in this conversation aren't from Minnesota, but have been impacted by Minnesota, moved to Minnesota, and became engrossed and enveloped and loved in the culture that is Minneapolis, Twin Cities, and beyond. So we're super, super excited to have you two on. We are hoping to have another guest later on in our conversation, but I don't want us to hold up. I wanted to get started just on, wow, it's Black Music Month, y'all. Right?
Right on.
And I would love just to get an overall, just to start off with, how has Minnesota's music scene impacted you in the work that you've done? I don't want to say how you've impacted it, but how has it impacted you in the work that you've done? And tell us about the work that you've done as well, though. Let's start with Ms. Robin.
Thank you, Stefanetta. Hey, Marquis, how are you tonight?
We are amazing.
You know, I think when you first get involved in Minnesota music, you're so caught up in the entertainment value. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of entertainment in the Twin Cities. You can go out 365 days a year and hear music, and that is not happening everywhere around the country. So when you get there and then you realize all the people that you grew up or watched are all there in one place. Alexander O'Neill, Tribe of Millions, of course, Prince, you know, ipso facto. You've got amazing artists. Of course, Ann Nesby, the queen of gospel music in the Twin Cities. So you are instantly engrossed. But what it did for me is really not only I owe my career to Minnesota music, Black Minnesota music, but what it also did for me was something that you talked about, Stefan, is the politics of Minnesota music. And most people don't realize that Black artists could not play downtown up until the 80s. Most people have no idea that, music was relegated to the North Side and the Capri Theater. Most people don't know that many of these artists, they did not get rich. You see what the lifestyle is on MTV and all that, but these are artists that struggle from the ground up and made it possible for other artists to get their foot wedged in the door across the country, across the planet. If it wasn't for them, their music would not be heard. So I respect Minnesota, and I respect Minnesota music for all that it's given me in terms of a career and a platform to speak on behalf of artists in Minnesota.
Wow, that. You know what? We don't really talk about it. It's just like we don't talk about pre-80s or pre-Prince. Let's just be in terms of how you were able to move. Like him even being able to play at First Avenue at that time was huge in the just huge for a Black person to have that platform. And then for you, let's talk. I mean, even when you came on, Robin, on the scene later on and really started sharing those stories, it was still groundbreaking to have somebody that looked like us behind the scenes to share those stories and be able to connect us back to our community in a different way.
We know that, media is not necessarily seen in a positive light, particularly in our community. I cannot tell you how many times I was told I was a tool of the white man and co-opted in our community. Ooh. But I've always felt that if we're not there, who's going to be there for the Georgia Forts? And Georgia, who made a remarkable transition from KMOJ to doing her own production company and really out there telling the story of what's happening. I mean, we can't discount the media. We can't discount where music brought many of our people in terms of visibility in the Twin Cities community. So, I didn't look at it as I'm a Black woman, I'm gonna go out here and I'm, for my people. I looked at it as this is a major opportunity to really talk about the Twin Cities itself. My bosses hated the buzz. I mean, they talked about it all the time about how much time it was taking up. It wasn't until Steve Greenberg, who wrote the song Funky Town, stopped my boss in a restaurant because they were going to pull the buzz off the air. They thought it was a time waster. They didn't like it. It was Mark Wheat, actually, when he was on KFAI, said, support this program, support music, support local music. But it was Steve Greenberg who wrote Funky Town that saw my boss in a restaurant and walked over to his table and said, if you kill that segment, you're a blank idiot. And that's how it stayed on the air.
Wow. And for folks who don't know, that's on Fox 9, and that show, it's still running.
It's running in different incarnations, but they killed the buzz just about 2008, 2009. Yeah. It's disheartening when you land the interview, Prince, and your boss looks at you and kind of goes, well, it's not Dylan.
Oh.
But the importance of what Prince gave to this community. Bob Dylan left. Prince brought business to this town. Prince had people come from all over the planet just to work for him. So he brought revenue, he brought infrastructure, and then he helped create the mega talented Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, which represents so beautifully for the Twin Cities, still representing the beauty of the Twin Cities. So, I disagree with anybody who kind of poo-poos what Black music has done in the Twin Cities, because Black music brought revenue, artists, and really the eyes of the world to the Twin Cities.
Culture. It's a connecting point for the Twin Cities. If you don't come together for anything else, you're gonna come together for music, right?
You're gonna come together for music, and you're gonna have artists from all over the planet come who want to create with you. If it's George Clinton, or if it's Shaka Khan, or you can hear a sample on any Public Enemy track, and they got Prince. So, the influence is just mad crazy.
And then Marquise, you pulled up a little bit later into the Twin Cities, but you came on board and said, "Hey, I want to be a part of this music scene and music culture." Can you share how it's impacted you and what sticks with you?
It's so surreal being here. I mean, I've been such a big Prince fan probably for the last 17, 18 years. And a lot
That's
of
it?
Prince's, yeah, I mean, a lot of his great work predates me. I was born the year that Purple Rain came out, so do the math on how old I am. But saying this to say, when I arrived to Minnesota in 2013, I lived in Rochester, Minnesota for a few years until I transitioned over to the Twin Cities. But the week that I arrived, Prince had a pajama party at Paisley Park. I wasn't able to make it, of course, because I was new to the state and I was trying to figure, life out or whatever. But to know that me growing up in Detroit and listening to Prince for as long as I did, I think I was like 20 years old when I really got into Prince, and just like wanting to go to these concerts and wanting to just all things Prince. I mean, again, Robin's interview, I saw that on YouTube before I even moved to Minnesota, and just engulfing myself and naturally being such a big Prince fan, I became a fan at the time. And then Alexander O'Neal, and then I learned about Mint Condition was from here, and then all these other people, well, I didn't know these people were from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it's been surreal, and it helped me to really appreciate that music that had been such a big part of my 20s. And again, I'm in my 30s now. And thinking about the stuff that I've been able to do is actually been fun. Like being able to talk to Alexander O'Neal, like, hey, I love your music, and saying the same thing to Morris Day, because coincidentally, and this, I have to bring Detroit in with everything that I talk about.
Right on.
These people got big reputations in Detroit. Like Detroit is Prince's second home. Like he had a big start in Detroit. Billy Sparks, the concert promoter in Purple Rain, is from Detroit. He knew my mom. He would give those tickets to my mom, and my uncle had a record store. And I think the Purple Rain tour debuted in Detroit. So all of that
in Detroit. Saw it in Detroit.
Joe Louis Arena. This is
I was there.
I was what, 6 or 7 months old. I wasn't there, but I think my mom might have been there. Who knows? But saying all this to say, like, I've been able to just have fun, and even outside of my 9 to 5, be appreciative of the fact that I'm here. I've been able to write about these people that I've listened to. I would have never have imagined that. And again, it's just been so fun and so surreal. Like I'm blessed. I don't know what else to say.
I agree with you, brother. I say the same thing all the time. I was blessed to come to the Twin Cities.
I just want to touch base with our viewers. If you tuned in, we have Robin Robinson, legendary. Just to be clear, just legendary in terms of media, journalist, culture in Minnesota, and really a pulse on the music scene when we didn't know how else to, like, you connected us in a way that was just growing up. You connected us, just going to be straight up, not just news, but being able to see people that look like us that were doing things, right?
Exactly. And I grew up at a time where, if you saw a Black person on TV, you called people on the phone, you gathered in the living room, you cheered them on, you were excited to see them. So I felt a personal responsibility. My father was an alderman in Chicago, and he ran in circles where I got to meet people who were really all about Black people and seeing themselves in the excellence that Black people can give, and so it was, some of the brothers that were from like Renault Robinson and the Afro-American Patrolmen's League, and brother who was I can't think of the brothers, Oscar Brown Jr., who was a legendary performer in Chicago, and he was really down for the struggle. And so having these people in my house, having Minister Farrakhan in my house, and the Honorable Wallace Dean Muhammad in my house, and listening to them and hearing what they had to say, made me feel that it was my duty as a Black person to always represent and always be down for my people, no matter what. My foot was wedged in the door so that even if there were stories I couldn't tell, somebody else could come along and tell them. And I feel truly honored when young brothers and sisters come up to me and say, I watched you. I'm doing because you let me know that other Black people could do. But to be able to touch those people, and that's why I love Prince, because Prince recognized that, and he knew that he had this personal obligation to help other Black people. And my career would be nothing without him. My career would be nothing without Jimmy and Terry. Jimmy gave me amazing access to Flight Time and his artists, and getting to hang out with Janet and her husband at the time, Renee, because they trusted me. And I have to give Susan Owens credit for that too, who is Jimmy's right hand. They trusted me that while these people were in town recording Velvet Rope, that I would protect them and take them out and show them what the Twin Cities were about. That's love in the nth degree, and I can't help but be thankful to them for letting me be able to show other Black people what Black folks were doing.
Thank you. Yes, yes. So you hear what Robin said, you're hearing what Marquis saying. If you have any questions for them on, what they've covered and what they've seen and experienced in the Twin Cities in terms of music, please drop it in the comments. We want to touch on all of it. I know you two, growing up in Minnesota as well, understanding that in media, you are often the first touch point, right? For folks that come in, and also people who want to come up. So there's the people that are coming in town and the people who want to come up and out of town. You are that touch point. And so I just kind of want to get a sense of what that was like for you. The same way that Robin, you mentioned like Janet and crew were great with you taking them around town. What other stories or experiences do you have with other artists as they're coming in? Like what did they tell you their experiences were with you? Because you're the first touch point to Minnesota where we didn't know there was Black people.
I wish I could say that, I really, in the moment, you don't recognize what's happening. You're just, you're working. So, now that I reflect back on it, there were some amazing experiences that I had. And it was because I think the power of the buzz became so strong. And I worked so hard on it to not just be on the air every night, but to connect with the institutions, the various institutions. So First Avenue, the Caboose, Arnella's, and all those places. So when artists came into town or they had a show, the blessing was that they would tell their artists, you have to talk to her first. And it became important to me. Even if it was the Hennepin Theater Trust, we had for them to tell Eartha Kitt's producer, you have to talk to her. It's just an amazing thing, because there are no other Black folks. And I think that they recognize too that, these folks need to be in touch with what's happening locally. And I think that's really the brilliance of what happened with the buzz, is that people saw the value in it. They saw it for many different reasons, not just feeding their own infrastructure, but being able to get the message out to people who normally didn't use traditional media. They could find the buzz and find out what was happening and then go and be a part of. So I feel really blessed that people saw the value of the buzz.
Unmute yourself.
Ha!
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
What was that you said?
Back in the day, we would, Marquis, we would have to go to a Classic Records or something, right? To touch place, to have touch points with artists, or wait for them to come into town. And now you have, the great wide interwebs to make it so much easier. How has that impacted how you are able to access artists? Are they as open because of Minnesota connections, or is it just because it's another touch point for getting, media? How has your experience been?
It's been good for the most part. I think in writing with the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder and sharing my things online and, having that platform, and I'm grateful to have this platform, is that people are now starting to see the work that I'm doing. Like, I've gotten people who reached out to me, whether it be local artists or people who have platforms related to music. So one thing that comes to mind is there's a podcast radio show called The Power Hour, which plays all local music, and they were featured on Fox 9, I think another channel. But Ethan Horace, who's one of the hosts, hopefully he's watching. Shout out to Ethan if you are. He reached out to me just on account of me sharing my articles on social media and send me a message and like, yo, this is what we're doing. And we were able to develop a relationship, first as Black men, and then secondly, just on the strength of what he's doing to promote local independent artists in the Twin Cities and just independent artists itself. And then for the national artists, it's just more or less about the relationship. So the Alexander O'Neal, when he came to the Dakota, was at 2019. I just happened to reach out because I knew how big of a story that was going to be, because he hadn't been here, I think at the time, I want to say like 5 or 4 years. And I knew like I had to have that story because this was like his homecoming, and just knowing who he was and just what he represents, and just reaching out. And coincidentally, the person that was working with him was also from Detroit, so that Detroit connection kind of facilitated that. But what's interesting about the Alexander O'Neal story, Jelly Bean Johnson just happened to be in the crowd at that show, one of the shows, and I just remember like walking past him. I didn't say anything because my man Jelly Bean Johnson, I was like intimidated. But fast forward, last year, he had an album that came out, and the same person that worked with Alexander O'Neal connected me to Jelly Bean Johnson, and we were able to do a story. So it's just about having those relationships and being able to cultivate and also just keep those relationships going. So I would say with me sharing, and of course the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder giving me this platform, and then also like sustaining those relationships, because who knows, like my bucket list interview, Twin Cities artist wise, probably be Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, because I think it'll like all come together. But I'm confident that that'll come. We're gonna speak that into existence. I'm pretty sure it'll come together. But it's just been, having those relationships and maintaining those, and just keeping those things intact.
I think Marcus would agree with me. It's a matter of trust. I think, a lot of these artists have been burned many times in the media. They know that when they come to the Twin Cities, they can trust that they can put out what they want to put out without interruption. I think one of the proudest moments of my life was when I got the interview with Prince. He made me work for it too. He wouldn't do it in the Twin Cities. I had to drive to Fargo in a snowstorm to get the interview. But once we did it and he felt comfortable, Larry Graham came into the room Prince hadn't done a show in years in the Twin Cities because he was angry at the local media, particularly the Star Tribune, for writing things that he wasn't pleased about, whether it was CJ or John Bream. He was angry, and he decided finally after years he was going to do another show at Target, but he wanted to test it out in Fargo first. And so Larry came into the room and Prince told him to sit down. He wanted him to do this interview. And Larry's like, well, what is it? And I got ready to start talking. And Prince goes, it's the buzz. And what they do is they just tell you what's out there. They don't put anything else in it. They just give it to you. And I was just like, wow, he actually watches this. I'm stunned. But the truth of the matter is that the buzz was unique because we didn't tell your dirt. We weren't stalking you. We just told what you needed to get out on the air. If it was a new CD, you got a show, you're touring, something great happened in your life. We just put it out there for people to see. We didn't critique it. There was no critique. There was no secret agenda. And I think the level of trust when artists are at home is different than when they give the standard speech out to the national media.
There's a level of intimacy and care.
There is, I don't think I would have gotten the interview with Maite, which led to the Prince interview, if there wasn't a level of trust. And the trust came from the fact that baby Gregory had just died. And, you know, CJ was on blast on national news, just with all kinds of stuff. They didn't feel protected at home. And it took some work behind the scenes. Marquis, I don't suggest that you date anybody in Prince's entourage, but that's what I did. And because of that, I wound up with an interview with Maite because we started hanging out. I was friends with many of the women who were on wardrobe and makeup because I was dating someone in the band. I actually dated Tommy Barbarella at the time. And so because I was friends with Tommy, they all wanted to hang out. We go out to dinner. Maite came one night. She asked would I do an interview with her because she was just getting ready to go to Detroit to start her new dance company. And I said, yes, I definitely want to do it. But when we got to Paisley Park, she was a no-show. She was running around. She didn't want to talk to me. Prince didn't want her talking to me. And finally, after being there like 2 hours, no interview, my photographer's mad. I said to Jackie Thompson, who was running things there at the time, I said, can I talk to Maite just for a minute? And she came over, and I knew she was trying to avoid me. And I said to her very privately, I said, this isn't an interview about what lingerie you wear at night with your man. This is about you, your moment. This is your moment without him. And she sat down and she was ready for the interview then. We asked nothing about the baby. It wasn't that kind of interview. And I think from that moment on, Prince called, that was scary. Prince called me out to Paisley Park. Let me tell you, this Maite interview was hell to do because we were putting it together, and the whole time Paisley Park kept calling and saying they wanted to see it before it aired. And I knew Prince. If Prince didn't like it, it wasn't going on the air. And this was my talk show. I mean, my talk show was important. So I kept lying to him and going, oh, the courier didn't make it there? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me call the courier and find out what happened. I have no idea what happened to that tape. We'll get it to you, though. But we made sure he never got it before it hit the air. And as soon as it hit the air, Jimmy called. He wanted an interview with his wife. I was like, no, it's not that kind of thing. It's, you know, but Prince called right after that. And he's like, I want you to come out to Paisley Park. I was scared to death. But he came out and he shook my hand and he goes, you were fair to my wife. That's all that matters. And after that, we got the interviews. So it's trust in your own hometown that really won many of the major names over, and they all talk. So once Prince said it was cool and Jimmy said it was cool, we got interviews for days. It's all about trust.
You taking notes, Marquis?
But don't date anybody. Don't date anybody. That doesn't work.
Not today. It doesn't work today.
Yeah. No, I'm taking thorough notes, and I was just so engulfed in the story. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Robin got stories for days.
I know, girl. Don't get me started.
But I do want to just follow up really quick because it goes to trust and, you know, bring up Alexander O'Neal. So when he came to the Twin Cities for a show at the Dakota, the article and the interview was already done. So he was able to say thank you. But then as he was doing the show, an article in the Star Tribune about the show was written about, you know, the show that he was doing by a journalist who was named previously in this conversation.
Go ahead, brother, say it. No, you got to work there. You got to work there.
No, it was all good. But no, his article, or I just identified the person. But anyway, that person's article is less than flattering about the show. But what I wanted to do, and this is what I try to do with any artist, instead of me like critiquing their work, I rather tell the story and the inspiration behind their work. Because early in my career, I used to do that when I was writing, you know, in my 20s back in Detroit. I used to like critique albums and stuff. But then I thought about like, okay, I don't make music like that. I'd much rather a person tell me, or an artist tell me about what inspired them to create that body of work. Yeah. So in saying that and talking to Alexander O'Neal, I was wanted to connect with him as a Black man first and foremost, but also what he was doing. I didn't want to get into his personal life. Like, yeah, we spoke about his autobiography and stuff, but it was just things like, let me focus on highlighting his career and making sure that he's seen in the most positive light versus the article that was written during his show that didn't give him the most positive light. So for him to say, thank you, I enjoyed your article, I appreciate you doing that, he gave me a hug and everything, like that meant a lot to me. Because again, the Black media, we have to be very protective of our people.
Yes.
And the white media, unfortunately, doesn't do that. But hey, it is what it is.
True.
Protective and being able to share the story. I think that's we don't get to share our stories. I know we're talking a lot about Prince in the golden that 70s 80s jam situation Prince had, where in every that whole collective where we have the Minneapolis sound, right?
Right.
But I want to call it the Minnesota sound, because it's not just Minneapolis. Like St. Paul was popping, the Twin Cities, even the suburb. Like Minnesota has great music heritage for people of color coming up, and I just want to get into that piece of it. Like, I know we reflect back on Prince, but who else over the years, even today, like who are you listening to? Who are you seeing that's representing the that creative spirit that's nurturing something that's bigger than just them in sound right now?
I like King. And they're doing some beautiful music and overseas in London. They're connecting with big names and really just doing their own thing. They are great sisters that really, their music, it just transcends different genres. I love King. I think that's probably the only one that I'm kind of following right now from home. I'm sorry to say, I pay attention to what's happening.
Right, but they stick out.
They stick out, yeah, most definitely. Black Blondie did for a while, and I was way into them. And Sarah, pulled away from them and started DJing. If she had a set, I would go in town to see Sarah White. Back in the day, though, and the ones that I think people just slept on was Tribe of Millions. Tribe of Millions was amazing. Trio of brothers from St. Paul, led by Malo Adams, who is now over in London as well. But doing rock, hardcore Black rock, like around the same time of Living Color. And those brothers that came out of Living Color, the music was just phenomenal. And I still look for music from Doc, who was producing for Estero back in the trip hop days. I haven't heard much from him, but those are usually the artists that I kind of like blends. And I love R&B, but I like to mix it up with a lot of things. Nice. But King is what I'm actually listening to right now.
Nice. Marquis.
Yeah. Quite a few. I'll try to be brief in naming those individuals. Ashley DeBoss. I think I said her last name correctly. DeBoss, yeah. The article on her a few weeks back, or a few months back, I should say. And I had known a little bit about her, but like getting to know her as a person and how she creates music and really just the resume that she has. She was a contestant on The Voice, and super dope person, has some dope stuff. I think she did a song with Neo called Boy Crazy, and I can't think of the other name. The other song that she put out, but she's dope. David Billingsley is another person I connected with. He's a gospel artist. He also plays for Stokely's band. He's a keyboardist, and I think he was in the band MPLS.
Yeah.
So that was dope. Niles, who is a MC, he from Lansing, Michigan, but he's been in Minnesota for a long time. But he's been doing this thing. That's a really dope dude. It's been cool to see people shining on the mainstream, like Stokely. I know he's about to put out his second album.
Yeah,
it's coming out. He's been with Mint Condition for, of course, a number of years, but this will be his second album, and the singles he put out been very well received. Of course, Jelly Bean. He also put out a solo album after many years being in the time. So locally, I would say those. The Lioness is an MC that's out in Minneapolis. She's dope. I'm not sure if she has anything coming out, but I tried to keep their relationships going. And I'm fans of the people who I've done written articles about, because I don't like to review like whack stuff. I mean, the
Yeah.
music and stuff has been dope that I've been interviewing, but I just like, nah, if it's not popping, I'm like, I don't think I want to do an article on this. So we don't have to get to
Someone
somebody else.
who is usually prolific, but we haven't heard anything from yet because I think he's playing Papa is Muja. Muja Messiah always has something to say. But he's been a little quiet with Maria because they're playing parents right now. But that brother always has something to say.
Yo, Muja Messiah, he actually, I remember when I was at Vibe, he was like one of the top 50 MCs in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, he was tapped as one of the top 50. So I think when we're having these conversations and we talk about Minneapolis artists coming from the artist scene and leaving Minnesota, you'd be surprised how many people stand up and are able to hold their own outside of the state. Because
Oh my goodness, yes.
You feel like you're in Minnesota and it's like, oh, it's just these people here that are listening. But there's a rich crew of folks that were able to get up and leave and have that sound. Sarah was like that. Sarah White, we were back in Brooklyn together. You know?
I remember.
Yeah, so she was able, to hold her own in that space and stand out and have her own voice. And I think that's something that I think locally people kind of miss in talking about this Minneapolis sound or Minnesota sound, that it's just in Minneapolis, but it resonates across
worldwide
the world when you leave.
Worldwide. There's a brother that I was talking to about a year or so ago who's from the Twin Cities, DJing in Sweden, and a big hit over there. I mean, Minnesota's tentacles reach far and wide. It's a blessing to be able to say that, this person came, and even if they didn't come and stay or they're not from the Twin Cities, they got their baptism in the Twin Cities and went out and shared that with the world, so.
How do you see those connections and those developments impacting the music industry today?
Well, Prince predicted all this.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, brother was a visionary. He saw what was going down. He tried to warn us. Did we listen? No, we made fun of him because he wrote slave on his face. But, I'll leave that to Marquis. You can talk more on what's going on today.
I would say just the stretch that people has. I mentioned like the Power Hour, the radio show that's streaming on, I think it's iHeartRadio. Like it's devoted for local Twin Cities independent artists and independent artists across the nation, but the focus is on the Twin Cities. And the fact that those individuals, Ethan and Dr. Inferno, and I forget the other co-host, Tanky G, and another host there, but they've been doing their thing, and see them like getting their shine and like putting on for independent artists, like that's super dope. Again, Ashley, she's doing a concert, I think, with Alexander O'Neal this weekend.
She is, yeah, right.
Yeah. So like she's been doing her thing, and David Billingsley, he's also been doing his thing. So I would say like the people that I'm naming, they've kind of like really stretched themselves. From Ashley, who during the pandemic, she spoke about this in the Spokesman-Recorder, is that she was able to also do some voiceover work as well when the pandemic affected shows, and she was able to sort of pivot. And even Niles, who's an MC, he has his class that he's teaching both here in Minnesota and also his home state, Michigan, Lansing, Michigan to be exact. So they're able to kind of like, as Robin mentioned, like the tentacles and pivot and, do different things and really create names for themselves outside of their chosen field, but then also like making sure that they're being true to who they are. And again, like Ashley, I cannot be more proud of her, seeing what she's been doing in the short amount of time I've been able to connect with her. Same for Niles, same for David Billingsley. But Minnesota music is like, it's reaching, and I know Minnesota, you all can probably speak to this more so than I can. On the mainstream, has always been like a flyover state where nobody wants to come to perform here.
I hate that phrase. I hate it. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. But even in saying that, like now that I'm here and have been able to connect with these artists, like like it's some dope stuff going on in Minnesota, not beyond Prince and the Time and Jimmy Jam and Mint Conditioning, like people doing some dope things. So I'm just excited to see what they're doing.
I'm just so sad the pandemic has really killed that energy that people were coming from all over the country to see shows like Soundset. I mean, Soundset was a major display for our artists. And, you know, another year, no Soundset. It's just, it's hard for these artists to break out, and people can, you know, can take their music back to the other regions of the country, you know, and say that they saw this amazing platform for artists. So I'm really sad that the pandemic has kind of killed the growth of the new music scene. I don't want to call it new, it's been around for a while, but the new music scene that's really developing. You know, I love Lizzo, but she's not the only one that's coming out of here. I mean, she's blown up big, but there's other artists with great strength that come out of Twin Cities. I can't think of the name of these brothers. What was the band? I was following them for a while, and they changed the name to something Astral something, but Marquis probably knows better than me. I can't think of their name right now, but their manager is John Scott. And you know,
I love John. Okay.
John is down for the cause, down for music, and you know, a walking library of what Black music is in the Twin Cities. He's an amazing resource. If the fetus is back open again, go see John. He will tell you everything that's going down.
And curated half of it at the same time, right?
He was like 15 years old when I was on TV, and he would come to tell me stuff, and I would listen to. I mean, he knew what was going down, so of course I listened to him. You know, he's a great resource for Twin Cities music.
Now, you know, you mentioned the pandemic. We're going to get back into that. How? I know that there's been this pause. How do we see? You know, Marquis mentioned this pivot for certain artists, but Minnesota is known for that cultural bed, right? And supporting one another. Like you can get in music in the Twin Cities in a way that you can't get anywhere else.
Right.
Like it just the connections, not just saying you know somebody, but actually being connected when you know somebody.
Right.
How do you see music shaping in the Twin Cities post-pandemic or during? Because we don't know when this post is coming.
I think a lot of people haven't relied on the performance aspect. They've really relied on production, which is super important for Black folks to make sure that, you know, we are in multifacets of the music industry. Production is really the key to success these days. And I think because the pandemic has kind of shut people down, they've been incubating a lot and really kind of collaborating. And this is the strength of the Twin Cities, is its collaborative efforts. You know, people aren't factioned off in camps. They work with each other, whether it is mixing or, you know, production or, you know, bringing in new artists to make sure that there are overlays and all kinds of stuff. The digital world allows them to reach out beyond the Twin Cities and collaborate with artists. Unfortunately, the pandemic doesn't give them the opportunity to really market as strongly as they need or for people to hear everything that is out there.
Marquis?
Yeah. Being brief, I think it's going to be a lot of pivoting. Pivoting in the sense of people being innovative. I know during the pandemic, Niles had the open mic, the quarantine open mic thing that they were doing, where they were doing things virtually. They were inviting like different artists across the Twin Cities, across Minnesota, across the world, pretty much. And they were kind of gigging and doing their thing. And I think that it is going to be more attention to detail. Again, to use the example of Ashley, you know, she's put out, since I've interviewed her, like 3 or 4 different songs. And this interview took place June. So I think I interviewed her back in like April or March. And, you know, she has merchandise out. She's been really attention to detail. She has a video out, and it's like people were really perfecting their craft, if anything. I would say that, because it's more or less like the music is dope, but what is it beyond the music? And I think a lot of people are thinking about, okay, what can I do to reinvent myself, or even just like to perfect my craft? So I would say it's going to be a lot of pivoting, but in a way that people are really paying close attention or having more attention to detail about what they're doing.
Okay. So I heard production and detail for what you're looking for in this next crop or birthing of sound. Is there anything else that you wanna feel or hear or as they're coming up and producing and getting ready for this next wave?
Do you have anything you want to add, Robin? Or
Rap is dead.
Oh.
what's that?
She said, "Now fight me."
Now fight me. Fight me. I don't know. I just, I need, I need something more from what is happening in the rap industry. I need, I prefer my music to have a message to it. I would like to see more artists really kind of tackle the misogyny that has been laced into it that young women also pick up on. I mean, there's some serious sisters out there rapping that, and they've got some things to say, but the misogyny is still there, and I don't think that it's something that really benefits young women. We need a stronger message. So if people are writing during this time, they need to be writing things that are conscious, that addresses the current situation that is happening in our country right now.
I mean, going along those same lines, but just to kind of put a word to it, is authenticity. Because being in Minnesota, I mean, we don't have to rehash all what's happened in the last year and a half or so. People just need to be authentic. And what I mean by that is, you see what's going on. If it's your ministry to do so, try to incorporate some of that stuff that's going on into your art. And I'm kind of paraphrasing something that Gary Hines from the Sounds of Blackness told me. Really adopting the consciousness of what's going on into your art, if you're an artist, as you feel comfortable doing so, and really just being yourself, being present. Like, not everybody is not in everybody's wheelhouse or ministry to protest, but at the same time, what are you doing with your art to like vocalize what's going on, or how are you being a solution to some of the things? I know it's like a bigger problem or a bigger thing with that, but at the same time, like, are you using your art to vocalize and articulate what's going on, especially as a Black person? So in short, I would just say people being authentic and just being true to yourself, and maybe not always just thinking about yourself, think about the community as well. And I'll probably end right there.
I mean, there's a reason that 50 years hence that the Black arts movement and Afri-Cobra is relevant today. There's a reason 50 years hence that Marvin Gaye is relevant today, and Gil Scott-Heron. We've got to talk to each other about what is happening and create our own solutions. The greatest ontological design in the world is music. And ontological design is anything that touches people emotionally, physically, and creatively. And that's what sound design is all about. It is oral gold, aural, A-U-R-A-L, oral gold for our minds. And we need our artists, because our politicians are getting beat up every day. We need our artists to communicate, to talk and tell the truth about what's happening, and have the ability to allow people to take what they offer and expand on that and create a new consciousness for Black people.
All right. So that's the end of the conversation, y'all. So
I get to tell you about my date with Prince.
She just closed it right there. No. No, but honestly, seriously, that's super. That's the heart of being an artist, is being able to share the messages. And so I love that you both are calling folks out and calling on them to be able to be more honest in their representation and the sounds that they're giving us. And I know we talked about so many people and the greatness that, that is Prince, right? And so we see where music is going. Do you see that Minnesota internally is giving the shine properly, like this new, sorry, Marquis, but the new new wave of media, are they giving the stories right? Do you think that we have enough stories being told in the Twin Cities of the artists, and what can we do, or what do you challenge us to do?
I challenge reporters to be more intentional in their questioning and not just asking about music, but as Marquis said, ask about the artists themselves. And where they are in their music and how that's influencing what's happening in the Twin Cities and how it's influencing them as well. I don't think right now that I think the Twin Cities media is trying as hard as it can, but the divisions of media now, it's very hard to keep up. It's a 24-hour news cycle plus, it's not just that, it's podcasts and it's much more. And I think oftentimes there is a fear in the Twin Cities media of stepping out and doing what is not the norm, because revenue is important for the livelihood of media. However, I think that it can't be just Georgia out there telling the story. I mean, thank God MSR has seen a rebirth and really telling stories now. I read the Spokesman because the Spokesman has really done a good job and really presenting the community. But it's alternative media leading the way because commercial media is not doing the job. And that goes for radio too.
Okay.
I mean, as you brought up Georgia, like every time I go on Facebook, I always get the alerts, like what she's doing, like the
Right
notifications just come on just everywhere. I'm not sure if I can add anything other than what Robin mentioned. I mean, for me, and I'm only one person, and I do media, and I don't even see myself as me. I see myself as a Black storyteller or a curator because I'm an educator. That's my 9 to 5. That's what, pays my bills. And that's what I went to school for. But the reason I love writing is because I love being able to tell those stories of Black people and amplifying their voices as best as I can. So saying all this to say, it's going to involve, like Robin mentioned, asking those intentional questions about, the things that went on in 2020 and what's going on in 2021, like in what ways did that impact your music and also your outlook on life, and what advice would you give to people? Because in many ways, whether intentionally or unintentionally, these artists, whether they be local or even national, they're seen as public figures, and people are inspired by what they say, whether it's their music or the way that they live their lives or just being authentic. So I would say being able to ask those questions, but also again, using like non-traditional forms of media. Like I know I do my podcast, but it's more so Detroit specific, but I also know there are other people who are in the Twin Cities that are doing the same thing that I'm doing. Again, we mentioned Georgia, and I get all of those notifications on Facebook whenever I log in what she's doing, but it's going to take people like her to kind of continue that same vein. And the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder, granted, I've been writing for them for like the last year and a half, but it has changed in the last year and a half that I've been there. Like the stories have changed for the better, and just the coverage that they're doing has just been like super dope to see. Maybe because I'm there, I'm not sure, but
it's you and it's Brother Mel, it's Brother Mel Reeves and Stefanetta. You breathe life back into the Spokesman. If it wasn't for you covering culture and then getting out, it's not just covering culture, it's getting out there and the things that you were doing in the community. You had blizzards that wiped them out, but I tried to get there. I mean, it was the snow killed it. But honestly, you are bringing culture back to life. Marquis, we need you there. Brother Aaron Price with the elephant in the room. Important voices in the community.
But look, let me do full disclosure. Now, I left. I'm no longer editor-in-chief, right?
I know, but you helped. You helped give it the spark to come back.
And I want to also shout out Paige Elliott. She is the arts and culture editor, and she's been stronghold on it for the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder from when I was there, before I was there, in terms of really being able to say, hey, we need to have this piece. I know we're going to have the doom and gloom news, but let's set this section up. And she's been very intentional about that. So kudos to the rise of the
Yes.
Spokesman-Recorder over the years, and I'm glad I was a part, small part of it, and I'm seeing how it's going beyond just even those small things to something
Yes.
so much bigger and greater, and that's a blessing. But we ain't here to talk about the Spokesman.
Giving it lots of publicity.
Right. We can give the flowers all day long to that. But yes, no, kudos for the team. But if we come back, talking Minnesota music is the same thing. To me, it's seeing those small seeds that were planted to build bigger and better. I remember Toki and the Twin Cities Music Fest, right?
Yes.
I remember, the spoken word, because I was spoken word. So coming up in that and seeing all those pieces.
Yes. Shay Page and E.G. Bailey.
Mm-hmm. Prince, Xenophobia. Who can say that they performed in front of Prince, y'all? Like remember Xenophobia? Like that's huge. I was a part of that. And I see so many other people like come up, and then it opened the door. Like Robin, you opened the door for Marquis. They wouldn't be talking to him or having those stories if it wasn't already intentional relationships already developed here and looking for someone else to help pick up the mantle. And now we're not full time like you were, but everyone's picking up those pieces. And I think that's important to mention and to celebrate the incremental steps as we go on and see. So there's so much more.
Then I did what I was supposed to do. That's all I can say.
You impacted it, like all of us, from just thinking we wanted, because I'm not Georgia Ford. She's news anchor. She's coming to be news anchor. Do you get what I'm saying?
Amazing.
She's primed for news anchor type media. Then we have cultural editors. I'm more on the cultural side. I like to talk everything black, and I want to say black when I say it. So
there you go. Blackity, black.
And Marquis, you're coming up and giving another platform and a way for Black media to celebrate Black voices and Black culture, and that's part of the ongoing discussion. And so, before we leave, I think I would want to come back to the first question I asked you, but reframe it now through this conversation: is how has Minnesota's Black music scene impacted you, and what do you want others to take away from the media or the music scene?
Go ahead, Marquis.
Minnesota's Black music has impacted me in so many ways. I mean, the fact that I'm here talking to Robin, I had no idea who she was before moving to Minnesota, seeing you on YouTube and interviewing Prince. Because again, I was just, anything that has something to do with Prince, I wanted to learn more about it. But saying this to say, it's the fabric. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Prince, Alexander O'Neal, Mint Condition, the artists that I mentioned, Ashley, David, Niles, those people. I just want people to just recognize that. And I'm paraphrasing something that Gary Hines said in the article that'll be coming out this week for people who want to read it. There's an interview with Gary Hines, Sounds of Blackness, written by me. That's in the paper, but he said this, and he said it so eloquently that the Sounds of Blackness, you would think that music would be coming from Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, all of these predominantly Black cities, but this music was coming out of Minnesota. So I just want people to recognize that, and this is me coming from Detroit, one of the blackest cities in the nation, is that there is a soul that exists in Minnesota that is coming, that has always existed, but is coming up, is rising to the surface, and you can no longer ignore it. And I think it kind of goes to the thing that happened in 2020, 2021. You can no longer ignore Minnesota. You can no longer ignore the spirit, the essence of what happened here. And I think it has a lot to do with Prince, because if he can bring me here, and I know I came here for a job, but if Prince wasn't here, I don't think I would have ever moved here. So saying all this to say, the soul of Minnesota is rising and you can no longer ignore it. So I'll probably end on that.
Minnesota is about to change the world politically, and they're going to do it through music as well. And I am so glad to be a part of Minnesota, because it's going to rise like a phoenix and show the world how to do things that empower Black people and diversify and give us all the opportunity to step forward and stop being afraid of what's about to come, because it's inclusive, it's going to be powerful, and Minnesota is going to direct the world on that.
Yes. Well, that's it. Dropped all mics. I just want to thank you so much, Ms. Robin, Marquis, for this conversation, and for
Thank you.
our audience to be able to hear and get this side of the intimacy behind covering and talking Black music in Minnesota. So,
And please pick up a free issue of Artful Living, because it features Peyton Russell, who is known for his star on First Avenue, talking about the importance of street art and social justice.
yes. So you heard it. Pick up a copy, and then tune in to the conversations on MinnesotaSpokesman-Recorder.com. And I'm just excited to be part of this. And so thank you all for tuning in to the MSR Forefront.
Thank you.
There are people of color who were integral in the creation of the vaccine. And so for me, it was not just seeing a person who looked like me get the shot, it was a person who looked like me creating the shot. For all the things we miss, don't miss this.
A lot of people are saying women are getting infertile. I would like to have kids, so I don't want to put myself at risk for getting infertile just for getting a vaccine.
Now, when you talk about stuff like infertility, that's super scary, of course. The good news is there's absolutely no truth to that. All of the data so far suggests that that's not the case. I mean, nobody's become infertile from getting these vaccines. People have gone on to have babies after having them. People have gotten these vaccines while they've been pregnant and their babies have been born healthy. It hasn't been proven at all.